The galaxy was vast, almost infinite in its expanse, filled with stars that burned brightly and planets shrouded in mystery. Among the countless civilizations scattered across this cosmic sea, one stood above all others, the Veilith. They were a race of beings who had mastered technology far beyond the comprehension of most species. Their ships glided through space like silent predators, their weapons capable of reducing entire worlds to ash in moments. For centuries, they had conquered without resistance, spreading their dominion across galaxies as if it were their birthright. Kael'thar, the leader of the Veilith, sat upon his throne aboard the flagship Zarak. His elongated frame was draped in armor that shimmered with an otherworldly glow. His eyes, cold and calculating, scanned the holographic display before him. It showed the latest target in their campaign, a cluster of star systems on the edge of known space. These systems were home to primitive species, ones too weak to pose any real challenge. Yet Kael'thar did not underestimate anyone. He had learned long ago that arrogance could be fatal, even for someone as powerful as him. As he studied the map, Commander Zyrax entered the chamber. Zyrax was one of Kael'thar's most trusted officers, a warrior whose loyalty was matched only by his skill in battle. He bowed slightly before speaking. "My lord, our scouts have confirmed the reports. The next system contains several habitable planets, each rich in resources. There are signs of intelligent life, but nothing advanced enough to threaten us." Kael'thar nodded slowly, his expression unreadable. "Good. Prepare the fleet. We move, within the cycle." He paused, then added, "And ensure the message is sent ahead of us. Let them know what awaits if they resist." Zyrax saluted and turned to leave, but Kael'thar called out before he reached the door. "Remember, Zyrax, these conquests are not just about expansion. They are about proving our supremacy. No species should ever doubt the power of the Veilith." Far away from the Veilith Empire, on a small blue planet called Earth, humanity was making strides it had never dreamed possible. Decades of conflict and strife had finally given way to unity. Nations once divided now worked together under the banner of the United Earth Federation. Under the leadership of Admiral Daniel Harper, humanity had ventured into the stars, exploring distant worlds and forming alliances with other peaceful species. Admiral Harper was a man in his late 50s, with graying hair and a face lined by years of service. Despite his age, he carried himself with authority and confidence. He believed deeply in humanity's potential, seeing every challenge as an opportunity to grow stronger. One of his proudest achievements was the creation of the Eclipse, a state-of-the-art battleship designed to protect Earth and its allies. The Eclipse was more than just a ship. It was a symbol of human ingenuity and determination. Commanding the Eclipse was Captain Laura Hayes, a woman in her early 40s with sharp features and piercing green eyes. She had risen through the ranks quickly, earning respect for her tactical brilliance and unwavering dedication. Her crew admired her not only for her skills, but also for her compassion. She treated everyone on board as part of a family, knowing that trust and camaraderie were essential for survival in the harshness of space. Laura's first officer, Lieutenant Ryan Cole, was a stark contrast to her calm demeanor. Younger and more impulsive, Ryan often clashed with Laura over strategy, but despite their differences, they shared a deep bond forged through years of serving together. Ryan's quick thinking and bravery had saved the Eclipse more than once, earning him Laura's trust even when they disagreed. One day, as the Eclipse patrolled the outer reaches of human-controlled space, an urgent message came through. A scout ship had detected unusual activity near the border, an unidentified fleet moving at incredible speed. Laura immediately ordered the crew to prepare for potential combat while relaying the information back to Earth. Admiral Harper responded swiftly, instructing the Eclipse to investigate further. It didn't take long for the truth to become clear. The unknown fleet belonged to the Veilith, a name whispered in fear among other species. Humanity had heard rumors of their conquests, but had never encountered them directly. Now, those rumors were becoming reality. Laura gathered her senior staff in the briefing room. The tension in the air was palpable. Ensign Alex Grant, the youngest member of the team, looked nervous but determined. Dr. Emily Carter, the ship's chief scientist, adjusted her glasses as she reviewed the data. Everyone knew what was at stake. "We don't have much time," Laura began, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "The Valith are heading straight for us. If we let them breach our borders unchecked, they'll see us as easy prey. We need to show them otherwise." Ryan leaned forward, his tone intense. "We can't win a direct fight against them, Captain. Not yet. We're outnumbered and outgunned." "I agree," Laura replied. "But running isn't an option either. We need to buy time for reinforcements to arrive. That means hitting them hard enough to make them think twice about advancing further." Dr. Carter spoke up, her voice calm but firm. "There might be a way. Our scans picked up something unusual about their energy signatures. If we can analyze it properly, we might find a weakness." Laura nodded, considering the suggestion. "Do what you can, Doctor. In the meantime, we'll ready the ship for battle. Everyone has their assignments. Dismissed." As the crew dispersed, Laura remained seated, staring at the holographic map of the approaching fleet. She felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her shoulders. This wasn't just about protecting the Eclipse or even Earth. It was about proving that humanity could stand toe-to-toe with the greatest powers in the galaxy. Failure was not an option. Hours later, the Eclipse positioned itself near a dense asteroid field, using the rocks as cover. The Valith fleet loomed closer, their massive ships casting ominous shadows against the void. Laura gave the order to activate the cloaking device, rendering the Eclipse invisible to enemy sensors. Then they waited. When the Valith entered range, Laura initiated the attack. The Eclipse emerged from hiding, firing its cannons with precision. The sudden ambush caught the invaders off guard, causing confusion among their ranks. Explosions lit up the darkness as several smaller Valith vessels were destroyed, but the victory was short-lived. The Valith regrouped quickly, launching a counterattack that forced the Eclipse to retreat deeper into the asteroid field. Laura gritted her teeth as alarms blared throughout the ship. They had proven they could strike back, but holding their ground would require more than courage. Back in the command center, Ryan monitored the damage reports. "Shields are holding, but we can't keep this up forever," he said, his voice tight with urgency. Laura glanced at him, her expression resolute. "Then we'll find another way. We always do." And so the stage was set for a conflict that would change the fate of humanity forever. The Valith had conquered worlds with ease, believing themselves invincible. But now, a single human battleship stood in their path, ready to challenge everything they thought they knew. The aftermath of the first skirmish left both sides reeling. The Eclipse limped back into the asteroid field, its hull scorched and systems strained to their limits. Laura Hayes stood on the bridge, her hands gripping the railing as she stared out at the void. The Valith fleet had regrouped beyond the debris field, their ships glowing ominously in the distance. Though the Eclipse had inflicted damage, it was clear that the invaders were far from defeated. Ryan Cole approached her, his face pale but determined. "Captain, we need to assess the damage. Engineering reports multiple breaches in the lower decks and our shield generators are operating at 50% capacity." He hesitated before adding, "We can't afford another direct engagement like that." Laura nodded, her jaw tight. "I know, Lieutenant, but we've bought ourselves some time. That's something." She turned to face him fully. "How long until reinforcements arrive?" "At least 24 hours, Ryan replied. "Maybe more if they run into trouble en route." Laura exhaled sharply. 24 hours felt like an eternity when facing an enemy as relentless as the Valith. Still, she couldn't let doubt creep into her mind. The crew depended on her strength, and Earth depended on the Eclipse. She straightened her posture and spoke firmly. "Then we'll make every second count. Get Dr. Carter working on analyzing those energy signatures. If we can find a weakness, we might stand a chance." Meanwhile, aboard the Valith command ship, Commander Zyrax faced Kael'thar's wrath. The leader of the Valith sat on his throne, his expression unreadable, but his voice laced with barely contained fury. "You allowed yourself to be ambushed by primitives, by humans?" he demanded, his tone cutting through the silence like a blade. Zyrax bowed his head, though his pride stung at the accusation. "My lord, their tactics were unexpected. They used cloaking technology combined with the asteroid field to mask their position. We underestimated them. Kalthar rose from his seat, towering over Zyrax. His eyes burned with intensity. Underestimation is a luxury we cannot afford. Humanity may be primitive, but they are resourceful. Do not make the same mistake twice. He paused, then added, "Prepare a message for them. Let them know what awaits if they continue to resist." Back on the Eclipse, the crew worked tirelessly to repair the damage while preparing for another confrontation. In the science lab, Dr. Emily Carter pored over the data collected during the skirmish. Her fingers danced across the holographic interface as she isolated key patterns in the Valith energy signatures. Ensign Alex Grant hovered nearby, watching intently. "Dr. Carter," Alex said cautiously, "do you think we can actually find a way to stop them?" Emily glanced up, her expression calm but focused. "Every system has a flaw, Ensign. It's just a matter of finding it. These readings suggest their shields are tied directly to their power cores. If we could disrupt that connection even briefly, it might give us an opening." Alex nodded, though uncertainty lingered in his eyes. "But how do we do that without getting blown to pieces first?" "That's where Captain Hayes comes in," Emily replied with a faint smile. "She'll figure out the strategy. We just have to provide her with the tools." As night fell, or what passed for night in the endless blackness of space, Laura gathered her senior staff once again. The mood in the briefing room was tense but resolute. Everyone knew the stakes, yet no one flinched. Laura began the meeting by addressing the repairs. "Engineering assures me the critical systems will be operational within 6 hours," she said, her voice steady. "That gives us enough time to plan our next move. Dr. Carter, what have you found?" Emily stepped forward, activating the holographic display. "The Valith shields are powered by a centralized energy source. If we can target that source precisely, we might be able to disable their defenses temporarily. However, it would require a concentrated burst of energy, something our current weapons aren't designed to deliver." Laura frowned, considering the implications. "Can we modify the main cannon to achieve that?" "It's possible," Emily admitted, "but it would leave the ship vulnerable during the process. We'd essentially be gambling everything on one shot." Ryan spoke up, his tone cautious. "That's a big risk, Captain. If it fails, we're sitting ducks." "I'm aware of the risks, Lieutenant," Laura replied evenly. "But we don't have the luxury of playing it safe. If this works, it could turn the tide in our favor. Dr. Carter, work with Ensign Grant to make the modifications. Have them ready by morning." The meeting adjourned, and the crew dispersed to carry out their tasks. As Laura returned to the bridge, she allowed herself a moment of quiet reflection. The weight of command pressed heavily on her shoulders, but she refused to buckle under it. She thought about Earth, about the billions of lives depending on her and her crew. Failure was simply not an option. Hours later, the modifications to the main cannon were complete. The Eclipse drifted silently among the asteroids, waiting for the right moment to strike. On the Valith side, the message intended for humanity was broadcast, a chilling declaration of superiority and destruction. The transmission ended with a single ultimatum: surrender or face annihilation. Laura listened to the message in the privacy of her quarters, her fists clenched. The arrogance of the Valith infuriated her, but it also fueled her resolve. She joined the crew on the bridge, her presence inspiring confidence. "They think we're weak," she said, addressing everyone. "They think we'll roll over and die. Let's show them how wrong they are." The Valith fleet began advancing once more, their massive ships moving with deliberate precision. Laura gave the order to engage, and the Eclipse emerged from hiding, firing its cannons with renewed ferocity. This time, however, the goal wasn't to destroy, but to provoke. Laura maneuvered the ship closer to the enemy flagship, drawing their attention. "Stay sharp," she ordered. "We're baiting them into range." The Valith took the bait, focusing their fire on the Eclipse. Alarms blared as the shields buckled under the assault, but Laura held her ground. "Now, Dr. Carter!" she shouted. Emily activated the modified cannon, channeling all available power into a single, devastating blast. The beam struck the Valith flagship, piercing its shields and causing a chain reaction that rippled through their fleet. Ships faltered, their systems disrupted, and for a brief moment, the tide of the battle shifted. But the victory came at a cost. The strain of the attack overloaded the Eclipse's systems, leaving it defenseless. Warning lights flashed across the bridge as the crew scrambled to restore functionality. Laura gripped the railing, her heart pounding. "Damage report," she barked. Ryan responded quickly, his voice strained. "Shields are down completely. Main engines are offline. We're drifting." Laura swallowed hard, forcing herself to remain calm. "Then we hold our position. Reinforcements are almost here. We just have to survive a little longer." The Valith recovered faster than expected, regrouping and closing in on the crippled Eclipse. Laura knew they couldn't withstand another assault, but she refused to surrender. Instead, she ordered the crew to prepare for boarding actions, vowing to fight until the bitter end. Just as the Valith prepared to deliver the final blow, a new signal appeared on the scanners. A fleet of human ships emerged from hyperspace, led by Admiral Harper himself. The sight of reinforcements galvanized the crew of the Eclipse, reigniting their hope. Laura allowed herself a small smile as she watched the tide turn once more. Thaids. Battle raged on, but now the odds were different. Humanity had proven it could stand against the Valith, and the invaders were no longer certain of victory. For the first time in their history, the Valith faced an adversary who refused to back. "Down!" The arrival of Admiral Harper's fleet changed everything. The Valith, who had been on the verge of overwhelming the Eclipse, suddenly found themselves outmaneuvered and outnumbered. Human ships poured into the battlefield, their sleek designs cutting through space with precision. Lasers and plasma bolts lit up the void as both sides exchanged fire. The humans fought with a desperation born of survival, while the Valith struggled to adapt to an enemy that refused to yield. Laura Hayes watched from the bridge of the Eclipse, her heart pounding as she saw the reinforcements arrive. Relief washed over her, but it was short-lived. The battle was far from over, and the Eclipse itself was in no condition to rejoin the fight. Systems flickered back online one by one, but the ship remained vulnerable. Laura turned to Ryan Cole, her voice firm despite the chaos around them. "Get me a status update on all critical systems. I want to know what we can bring back online and how fast." Ryan nodded and relayed the order to engineering. He returned moments later, his expression grim. "Shields are still offline, and main. Propulsion is at 30%. Weapons are functional, but targeting systems are glitchy. We're not combat ready, Captain." Laura clenched her jaw, but didn't let frustration show. "Then we'll support the fleet however we can. Focus on repairing communications and sensors. If we can't fight, we'll coordinate." As the crew worked frantically, Admiral Harper's voice came over the comms. His tone was calm, but commanding. "Captain Hayes, report your status." Laura responded immediately. "Admiral, the Eclipse is operational but not combat ready. We're focusing on repairs and coordinating intel for the fleet." "Understood," Harper replied. "Hold your position and stay out of direct engagement until further notice. You've done more than enough already." Though Laura appreciated the acknowledgement, she couldn't shake the feeling of helplessness. The Eclipse had always been her pride and joy, a symbol of humanity's resilience. Seeing it sidelined during such a crucial moment felt like a personal failure. Still, she pushed those thoughts aside and focused on the task at hand. On the Valith flagship Zarak, Kael'thar observed the unfolding battle with growing unease. The humans had proven themselves far more resourceful than he had anticipated. Their sudden reinforcement had thrown his carefully laid plans into disarray. He turned to Commander Zyrax, his voice laced with barely contained anger. "This was supposed to be a swift victory. Instead, we find ourselves bogged down against primitives. Explain this." Zyrax bowed his head, though his own frustration mirrored his leaders. "The humans have adapted faster than expected. Their tactics are unconventional, and their resolve is stronger than any species we've encountered before." Kael'thar's eyes narrowed. "Strength means nothing without numbers. Order the fleet to focus fire on their largest ships, break their morale, and the rest will crumble." Back on the Eclipse, Dr. Emily Carter and Ensign Alex Grant worked tirelessly in the science lab. They had managed to refine their analysis of the Valith energy signatures, uncovering a critical flaw in their power systems. Emily explained her findings to Laura, using simple terms so the message would be clear. Their shields are tied directly to their power cores. If we disrupt the flow of energy between the two, their defenses collapse completely. But it requires precise timing and coordination. Laura listened intently, her mind racing. How precise are we talking about? Emily hesitated before answering. Milliseconds. Any delay and the effect won't work. It's risky, but if we pull it off, we could disable their entire fleet. Laura nodded, her decision made. Then we'll do it. Relay the data to Admiral Harper and prepare the Eclipse to assist. We might not be able to fight, but we can still make a difference. The plan was simple yet daring. Admiral Harper's fleet would draw the Vaylith into a concentrated formation, while the Eclipse used its modified cannon to deliver a synchronized pulse designed to disrupt their power systems. The success of the operation depended on perfect timing and flawless execution. Laura knew the risks, but believed it was their best chance to turn the tide decisively. As the human fleet maneuvered into position, the Vaylith grew increasingly aggressive. Their ships launched wave after wave of attacks, determined to break through the human lines. Explosions rocked the battlefield as ships on both sides were destroyed. The tension aboard the Eclipse was palpable, every crew member aware of the stakes. In the engine room, Chief Engineer Marcus Lee worked alongside his team to stabilize the ship's systems. Sweat dripped from his brow as he shouted orders, his hands moving deftly over the control panels. Divert auxiliary power to the cannons. We need every ounce of energy we can spare. Up on the bridge, Laura monitored the situation closely, her eyes glued to the tactical display. The Vaylith were falling into the trap, their ships clustering together as they pressed their attack. She gave the order to prepare the cannon, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. Dr. Carter, are you ready? Emily's voice crackled over the comms. Ready, Captain? Just give the word. Laura took a deep breath, her finger hovering over the firing controls. Admiral Harper, we're in position. On your mark. Harper's response came swiftly. Mark. At his signal, the Eclipse unleashed its modified cannon, a brilliant beam of energy slicing through space. The pulse hit the Vaylith formation dead center, causing a chain reaction that rippled through their fleet. Shields flickered and collapsed, leaving their ships exposed and vulnerable. Cheers erupted across the human fleet as the tide of the battle shifted dramatically. But the victory was not without cost. The strain of the attack caused the Eclipse's systems to fail once again, plunging the ship into darkness. Warning lights flashed as the crew scrambled to restore basic functions. Laura gripped the railing, her knuckles white. Damage report! Ryan's voice came through, strained but controlled. We've lost primary power. Life support is holding, but we're drifting. Repairs will take time. Laura exhaled sharply, forcing herself to remain calm. Then we hold our ground. Reinforce the hull and prepare for boarding actions if necessary. The Vaylith, reeling from the loss of their shields, began retreating in disarray. Their once unstoppable fleet was now in shambles, their pride shattered by an enemy they had underestimated. Kael'thar watched the retreat with a mixture of fury and disbelief. For the first time in centuries, the Vaylith had been forced to withdraw from a battle. It was a humiliation he would not soon forget. Commander Zyrax approached him cautiously, his voice low. My lord, we must regroup. Our forces are spread too thin, and the humans have proven themselves capable of countering our technology. Kael'thar's expression darkened, but he nodded reluctantly. Very well. Withdraw the fleet and assess the damage. But this is not over. Humanity will pay for this insult. Back on the Eclipse, the crew worked tirelessly to stabilize the ship. Though battered and bruised, they had played a pivotal role in turning the tide of the battle. Laura addressed her crew over the intercom, her voice filled with pride and gratitude. You've all done incredible work today. Against overwhelming odds, you stood your ground and proved that humanity cannot be broken. We may have taken hits, but we're still here. And as long as we're here, we'll keep fighting. Her words resonated throughout the ship, lifting spirits and renewing determination. The battle was far from over, but for the first time, the humans had shown the Vaylith that they were not invincible. The galaxy would never be the same again. The aftermath of the pulse attack left the battlefield in chaos. The Vaylith fleet, once a symbol of unstoppable power, was now scattered and disoriented. Ships drifted aimlessly, their shields down and systems crippled by the energy disruption. For the humans, it was a moment of triumph, but also one of caution. Admiral Harper's fleet moved swiftly to capitalize on the advantage, targeting the most vulnerable Valith vessels while maintaining defensive formations to guard against any counterattacks. On board the Eclipse, the crew worked tirelessly to restore basic functionality. The ship groaned under the strain of its damaged systems, but Chief Engineer Marcus Lee refused to give up. He barked orders to his team, his voice steady despite the exhaustion etched on his face. "Get the auxiliary generators online. We need life support stable before we lose any more air." Laura Hayes paced the bridge, her mind racing as she monitored the situation. The Eclipse was still drifting, unable to contribute directly to the ongoing battle. She felt a pang of frustration but pushed it aside. The ship had already played a crucial role, and now it was up to the rest of the fleet to finish what they had started. Still, Laura couldn't shake the feeling that the fight wasn't over yet. The Valith were too proud, too determined to simply retreat without trying one last desperate move. Ryan Cole approached her, his expression grim. "Captain, repairs are progressing, but we're not combat ready anytime soon. Even if we stabilize the engines, we'll be lucky to reach half speed." Laura nodded, her gaze fixed on the tactical display. "Then we'll focus on supporting the fleet from here. Relay everything we've learned about the Valith to Admiral Harper. If they try anything else, we need to be ready." As the human fleet pressed their advantage, the Valith began regrouping under Commander Zyrax's leadership. Though their forces were battered, they still outnumbered the humans. Zyrax knew they couldn't afford another direct confrontation, so he devised a new strategy. Using the remaining functional ships, he ordered a series of hit-and-run attacks designed to divide the human fleet and create openings for a larger strike. Kael'thar watched the unfolding tactics from the safety of the rear lines, his anger simmering beneath a veneer of calm. He had underestimated humanity, and the consequences were clear. Yet he refused to accept defeat. "Zyrax," he said coldly, "if this fails, you will answer for it." Zyrax bowed slightly, though his own frustration mirrored Kael'thar's. "It won't fail, my lord. The humans are spread thin. A few well-placed strikes will weaken them enough for us to break through." Back on the Eclipse, Dr. Emily Carter analyzed the data streaming in from the battle. Her eyes widened as she noticed patterns in the Valith movements. "Captain Hayes," she called out urgently, "the Valith are changing tactics. They're splitting into smaller groups and targeting isolated ships." Laura frowned, her instincts telling her this was trouble. "They're trying to divide us. If we don't respond carefully, they'll pick us off one by one." She immediately contacted Admiral Harper, relaying the information. Harper acknowledged the warning and adjusted the fleet's formation, pulling ships closer together to maintain mutual support. But the Valith were relentless, striking quickly and retreating before the humans could mount a coordinated response. Explosions lit up the void as several human ships took heavy damage, forcing them to withdraw from the fight. The tension aboard the Eclipse grew palpable. Laura knew they couldn't sit idly by while the fleet struggled. She turned to Ryan, her voice firm. "We may not be at full strength, but we can still help. Position us near the edge of the battlefield and use our sensors to track the Valith movements. If we can predict their next strike, we can warn the fleet." Ryan hesitated, concern evident in his eyes. "Captain, we're barely holding together, as it is. If we get caught in the crossfire—" "I know the risks," Laura interrupted, her tone leaving no room for argument. "But we're part of this fight whether we like it or not. Every second counts." The crew sprang into action, maneuvering the Eclipse into position. Though slow and cumbersome, the ship managed to avoid direct engagement while providing critical intel to the fleet. Laura monitored the sensor readings closely, her sharp eyes catching subtle shifts in the Valith formations. "They're setting up for another attack," she muttered under her breath. "Ryan, alert Admiral Harper. Tell him to reinforce Sector 7. Harper acted swiftly, redirecting ships to bolster the threatened area. The Valith struck moments later, only to find themselves met with overwhelming resistance. Their surprise, assault faltered, and they were forced to retreat once again. Cheers erupted across the human fleet, but Laura remained focused. She knew the Valith wouldn't give up easily. In the engine room, Marcus Lee and his team worked miracles, patching together enough systems to bring the Eclipse partially back online. Power hummed faintly through the ship as lights flickered. Back to life. Marcus wiped sweat from his brow and reported to the bridge. "Captain, we've got partial propulsion and limited weapons back online. It's not much, but it's something." Laura allowed herself a small smile. "Good work, Chief. Stand by for further orders." The battle raged on, each side trading blows, in a deadly dance. The Valith grew increasingly desperate, launching reckless charges that left their ships exposed. Humanity, buoyed by their earlier successes, fought with renewed determination. Ship after ship fell on both sides, the cost of victory mounting with every passing moment. Amidst the chaos, Laura received an urgent message from Admiral Harper. His voice was strained but resolute. "Captain Hayes, we're pushing them back, but they're massing for a final push. I need every available ship ready to engage. Can the Eclipse hold its own?" Laura glanced at Ryan, who nodded silently. "Admiral, we're operational enough to join the fight. Just tell us where you need us." Harper didn't hesitate. "Sector 5, intercept and hold until reinforcements arrive." The Eclipse limped toward the designated coordinates, its engines straining under the effort. As they arrived, Laura saw the full scale of the Valith assault. Dozens of ships advanced in a tight formation, their weapons blazing. The human defenders were outnumbered and struggling to hold the line. Laura gave the order to fire, her voice steady despite the odds. "All hands brace for impact. Target their lead ships and don't let up." The Eclipse unleashed its cannons, joining the fray with everything it had left. Its weakened state made it an easy target, but Laura refused to back down. The crew fought with grit and determination, their hearts pounding as explosions rocked the ship. Warning alarms blared, but no one flinched. Ryan shouted over the din, his voice filled with urgency. "Shields are failing, Captain! Hull breaches on decks 3 and 4! "Seal them off," Laura commanded, her eyes locked on the tactical display. "Keep firing. We hold this position no matter what." The Valith pressed harder, sensing weakness. But just as it seemed the Eclipse would be overwhelmed, reinforcements arrived. Admiral Harper's flagship led the charge, slamming into the Valith flank with devastating force. Caught between two fronts, the invaders faltered, their resolve crumbling under the relentless assault. Commander Zyrax realized the battle was lost. He transmitted a retreat order to the remaining Valith ships, his voice laced with bitterness. "Fall back. Regroup at Rally Point Omega." Kael'thar listened to the report in silence, his fists clenched tightly. The humans had proven themselves far more formidable than he had anticipated. For the first time in centuries, the Valith had been forced to flee. It was a humiliation he would not forget. As the Valith fleet disappeared into hyperspace, the human ships regrouped amidst the wreckage of the battlefield. Cheers echoed through the comms channels, but Laura felt only exhaustion. She addressed her crew over the intercom, her voice filled with quiet pride. "You've all done incredible work today. Against impossible odds, you stood your ground and showed the galaxy what humanity is made of. Take a moment to rest. We've earned it." The Eclipse drifted quietly among the debris, its battered hull a testament to the sacrifices made. Though victorious, the scars of the battle would linger for a long time. Yet even in the face of such devastation, hope burned brightly. Humanity had taken its place among the stars, proving that it could stand against the greatest powers in the galaxy. The battle was over, but the cost weighed heavily on everyone. The void of space was littered with the wreckage of ships from both sides, a grim reminder of the price of victory. On board the Eclipse, the crew worked silently to repair the damage and tend to the injured. Laura Hayes stood on the bridge, her gaze fixed on the stars outside. Though the immediate threat had passed, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The Valith were not the kind of enemy to retreat and disappear forever. They would return stronger and angrier than before. Ryan Cole approached her, his face drawn with fatigue. "Captain, the repairs are progressing, but it'll take weeks to get the Eclipse back to full strength. We've lost too many systems in the fight." Laura nodded, her expression calm but resolute. "Then we'll make do with what we have. Earth needs us now more than ever. Get me a status report on the fleet's condition. I want to know how much of our forces are still operational." Ryan relayed the order and returned moments later. "Admiral Harper reports heavy losses across the board. About 40% of our ships are either destroyed or severely damaged. But morale is high. Everyone knows we held our ground against the Valith." Laura exhaled slowly, her mind racing. The human fleet had proven its strength, but the toll was undeniable. She turned to Ryan, her voice steady. "Send a message to Earth Command. Tell them we need reinforcements and supplies as soon as possible. If the Valith come back, we'll need every advantage we can get." As the days passed, the survivors began the long journey home. The Eclipse limped along at half speed, its crew working tirelessly to keep the ship running. Laura walked through the corridors, checking on her people. She stopped by the medical bay, where Dr. Emily Carter tended to the wounded. Emily looked up as Laura entered, her face pale but determined. "Captain," Emily said softly, "we've done what we can for the injured, but some won't make it. The med bay is overwhelmed." Laura placed a hand on Emily's shoulder, her touch firm but gentle. "You're doing everything you can, Doctor. That's all anyone can ask for. Keep me updated on their conditions." Emily nodded, gratitude flickering in her eyes. "Thank you, Captain." In the engine room, Chief Engineer Marcus Lee and his team labored around the clock to stabilize the ship's systems. Marcus wiped sweat from his brow as he adjusted a panel, his hands moving with practiced precision. Ensign Alex Grant handed him tools, his youthful energy undiminished despite the exhaustion etched on his face. "Chief," Alex said cautiously, "do you think we'll be ready if the Valith come back?" Marcus glanced at him, his expression serious, but reassuring. "We'll be ready, Ensign. No matter what happens, we'll hold the line. That's what we do." Back on Earth, Admiral Harper addressed the United Earth Council, his tone grave but unwavering. "The Valith underestimated us, but they won't make that mistake again. This victory was hard-fought, but it's only the first step. Humanity must prepare for a war unlike anything we've faced before." The Council listened intently, their faces reflecting a mix of pride and concern. One member spoke up, his voice steady. "What do we need to ensure our survival?" Harper didn't hesitate. "Resources, manpower, and innovation. We need to push the boundaries of our technology and strengthen our alliances with other species. The Valith are relentless, but so are we." On board the Valith flagship Zarak, Kael'thar brooded in silence. The defeat at the hands of humanity gnawed at him, a bitter taste he couldn't ignore. Commander Zyrak stood nearby, awaiting orders. Kael'thar finally spoke, his voice cold and sharp. "This failure changes nothing. Humanity has shown us their strength, but they are still primitives compared to us. We will rebuild, rearm, and return. Next time, there will be no mercy." Zyrax bowed his head, though doubt lingered in his mind. He had seen the determination in the humans' eyes, the way they fought with everything they had. Still, he dared not question Kael'thar's resolve. "As you command, my lord." Weeks later, the Eclipse arrived back at Earth, greeted by cheering, crowds, and solemn ceremonies. Laura and her crew were hailed as heroes, their bravery celebrated across the planet. Laura accepted the praise with quiet humility, knowing it belonged to everyone who had fought and sacrificed. She addressed the crowd from the steps of Earth Command, her voice carrying strength and conviction. "We've shown the galaxy that humanity cannot be broken. But this is not the end. The Valith will return, and when they do, we must be ready. Together, we will stand strong. Together, we will protect our home." Her words resonated deeply, inspiring hope and resolve among the people. Humanity had taken its place among the stars, proving that it could face even the greatest threats with courage and unity. In the days that followed, Earth prepared for the battles yet to come. Ships were repaired and upgraded, new technologies developed, and alliances strengthened. Laura returned to the Eclipse, overseeing its restoration with a sense of purpose. She knew the road ahead would be difficult, but she also knew humanity had the strength to endure. One evening, as the Eclipse orbited Earth, Laura stood on the observation deck, gazing out at the planet below. Ryan joined her, his expression thoughtful. "Do you think we'll see the Valith again?" Laura didn't look away from the view. "I know we will, and when that day comes, we'll be ready." Ryan nodded, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Then let's make sure we're more than ready." As the stars shimmered in the distance, the Eclipse remained vigilant, a symbol of humanity's resilience. The galaxy was vast and unpredictable, but one thing was certain: Humanity had found its place among the stars, and it would not be moved.